Breaking tonight in Birmingham, a city known for football and factory grit, now stands as the centre of a political earthquake. What began as a match outside Villa Park has turned into Britain's biggest public order failure in a generation. The evening sky should have been filled with chants and club colours. Instead, it ignited with flares, glass bottles and riot shields. 700 officers from 25 police forces deployed in a single night. 6 arrests in the first hour. The most shocking moment, a woman dragged away by riot police. Her offence wasn't violence, it was waving an Israeli flag. What should have been sport became a televised street war. Crowds surged, barriers buckled, fireworks exploded across the stadium frontage. Officers retreated under a hail of bottles as social media live streams replaced official police briefings. Flares painted the night red, and Birmingham, the beating heart of the Midlands, became a symbol of something the government refuses to say aloud. Britain has lost control of its streets. Nigel Farage warned months ago that this was coming, that leadership had collapsed into excuse-making and managed decline. He was dismissed as alarmist. Tonight, even the police quietly admit it. We cannot contain it. Inside Westminster, it was business as usual. Meetings, dinners, speeches. Outside, Britain was on fire. Keir Starmer calls this leadership. But to the millions watching online, it looks like surrender. 12 intelligence alerts were issued ahead of the match. 12 warnings ignored. $2.3 million spent on security. Barriers, overtime, drones, all of it breached before kick-off. The Home Secretary, at a gala dinner. Deputy Prime Minister, unreachable. Downing Street delayed speaking for 9 hours. When a statement finally came, it lasted 40 seconds. We are monitoring the situation. Monitoring while police lines collapse. Tonight, the only thing collapsing faster than public order is trust. A new poll shows 68% of Britons believe the government has lost control. Trust in the police sits at 17% and falling. The footage didn't look like policing, it looked like panic. Farage didn't wait for an official briefing, he went live. This isn't leadership, it's surrender in slow motion. Within hours, his broadcast hit 3 million views, faster than any government statement in modern history. Westminster dismissed him as divisive. The public called him right. For generations, Britain exported order to the world. Tonight, it cannot enforce order in its own streets, and that is the real headline. By dawn, the consequences were undeniable. Police lines that were meant to hold firm bent like wet cardboard under the weight of thousands. The government called it contained unrest. But the footage, broadcast in real time across the world, told a different story. Flares, fists and fury all unfolding in the country that invented modern policing. 80 arrests, 30 injuries, 1 officer carried away unconscious after being struck with a glass bottle. And yet ministers continued to insist everything was under control. Markets opened lower the next morning, reacting not to a football riot but to something far more dangerous, a political vacuum. Investors saw a government paralysed by fear of public opinion. Insurance firms began withdrawing coverage from city events. Event organisers quietly cancelled bookings. The Treasury called it temporary instability. But numbers don't lie. Confidence was evaporating faster than the pound. Then Farage struck again. While government spokespeople issued carefully rehearsed lines, Farage returned to camera with something far more damaging. Evidence. GDP had slipped 0.4% in the last quarter. Police recruitment had risen 19%, yet street violence rose 22%. 41,000 new asylum claims in just 3 months. Officer overtime up 68%, patrol coverage down 30%. Farage didn't shout, he didn't posture, he simply read the numbers aloud. That isn't law and order, he said, that's collapse by design. Downing Street labelled him dangerous. Labour called him divisive. But outside Westminster, in pubs, in cafes, in queues, outside supermarkets, people whispered, he's not wrong. Because every silence from the government made Farage's voice louder. Every delay made him look prophetic. A politician didn't become popular. A power vacuum did. This wasn't politics anymore. It was exposure. Authority didn't just fail, it dissolved. Street by street, command by command, trust evaporated into the night air. When police withdrew from Birmingham, Manchester followed. London prepared for unrest, riot shields replacing traffic cones. Helicopters thundered over the skyline. The Home Office called it precautionary. The footage looked like martial law. Still, Starmer remained silent. Ministers shifted blame. Committees were formed, papers drafted. Nothing changed. Behind closed doors, the government triggered something no British Prime Minister wishes to authorise. Military readiness inside the United Kingdom. Not for war, for Birmingham. Internal documents referenced a phrase unseen in modern British governance: potential loss of civil control. Markets didn't shake, they collapsed. The pound slid below 1.20. Investors withdrew billions in hours. Britain wasn't being evaluated as a stable nation anymore. It was being priced as a risk. News organisations around the world declared it bluntly. Britain is no longer governing, it is reacting. Farage returned once more with a message that would echo across Europe. When government fears its own citizens, democracy dies. Within hours, the clip was broadcast in 40 countries. Starmer still silent, and silence became policy. Banks quietly capped withdrawals at 253. Major insurers suspended urban coverage. 90 council offices closed, citing staff safety concerns. It wasn't fear anymore. It was disconnection. A machine still humming long after the power had been cut. Polls revealed a catastrophic truth. 72% of Britons no longer believe official statements. Even the police were fracturing. 43% of serving officers admitted they would refuse order enforcement on future protests. Power didn't disappear. It deserted the people who failed to wield it. The breaking point didn't arrive with flames, but with revelation. For months, Britain had been told to trust the process, trust the government, trust the institutions, trust the men in the suits who insisted they were in control. But control doesn't vanish in a firestorm. It vanishes in a silence. Downing Street kept repeating the same three-word line. We are monitoring. Monitoring what? Cities locking down, police retreating, markets falling apart. The public wasn't convinced because reassurance without action is just noise. And Britain had stopped listening. Westminster begins to crack inside Parliament. Voices that once worshipped the word unity now whispered something darker. Ministers gathered in closed rooms behind doors guarded by armed officers. Photos leaked of emergency briefings mapped out like wartime strategy sessions. Someone finally said the forbidden phrase out loud, loss of control. That was the moment the illusion shattered. The first resignation came from a police commissioner, then a minister, then two more senior aides. Each resignation carried the same chilling sentence. The system no longer functions. Not struggling, not strained, no longer functions. In any other era, that line would spark shockwaves. Now, it barely moved the dial. Markets didn't crash because they'd already priced Britain in as a failing state. Newspapers called it the Empire's Mirror, a nation that once exported order, now importing chaos. The street finds its voice. But outside Westminster, something remarkable began to happen. The anger didn't escalate, it transformed. In Manchester, war veterans stood beside nurses. In London, teenagers carried candles across Westminster Bridge. In Birmingham, strangers walked silently together through streets still smelling of smoke. No slogans, no chanting, just quiet determination. Spray painted across a wall in bright white paint appeared a phrase that would circle the globe. We remember who we are. Those 6 words spread faster than any riot. No party logo, no political colour. Just a reminder, Britain wasn't breaking, it was waking. Farage made a brief appearance on air, not to lecture, but to watch the drone footage of thousands standing silently in the cold. For once, he didn't rage. He didn't criticise. He simply said, this isn't politics anymore, it's conscience. That clip went viral, not because of what he said, but because of the look on his face. The look of him. What happened next was unprecedented. Parliament and the symbol of British democracy reopened not to cheers or ceremony, but beneath floodlights and rifles. Soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder at the gates, not facing outward toward foreign threats, but inward toward their own citizens. The optics were devastating. Britain, the nation that once lectured the world on democracy, now required military presence just to unlock its own doors. Inside the chamber, Starmer entered to polite, robotic applause from a half-empty hall. Even the clapping felt forced, like a sound effect played over a silent film. Outside, the crowd didn't shout slogans anymore. They didn't need to. Their quiet was louder than any protest. They simply waited for honesty, waited for accountability, waited for proof that leadership still existed in the building protected by rifle barrels. Starmer finally spoke. His message, a familiar one: strength through order. The problem was nobody outside believed there was any order left. Farage, watching the speech from a studio, cut straight through the facade. This isn't order. It's panic pretending to be authority. And for the first time, he nodded. Across the aisle, across parties, across political lines, they agreed. Moments later, Farage called for a full parliamentary inquiry into Birmingham, into the ignored intelligence warnings, the disappearances of senior officials during the first hours of the riots, and the 9-hour silence from Downing Street. Everyone expected Labour to block it. They didn't. Even Labour backbenchers had reached their limit. They whispered the one phrase no government ever wants circulating in its own hallways: loss of control. Then the dominoes fell. One police commissioner resigned, then a minister, then 2 senior advisors, 4 resignations in 48 hours. Each letter contained the same line: the system no longer functions. The markets didn't crash because the collapse was no longer news. Britain's failure had already been accepted. International press headlines multiplied: the British fracture, the end of authority in the UK, a government in name only. And financial analysts, the one group that deals only in reality, describe Britain not as a stable economy but as a high-risk governance environment. Farage's next broadcast lit the fuse. If you cannot protect truth, you do not deserve power. Those 12 words detonated across the internet. 10 million shares? Trending in 60 countries. More reach than every official government statement that week combined. The next night, something unexpected happened. Not more riots, not more chaos, but silence. In Manchester, veterans stood in rows beside NHS workers. In London, teenagers crossed Westminster Bridge holding candles instead of placards. In Liverpool, families placed lanterns on the pavement, one for each night. They felt ignored. There were no banners, no party colours, just thousands of people standing in the cold. A quiet remembrance of what Britain was and what it should be. Drone footage captured it from above. Ribbons of light crossing bridges, streets and city squares. And on one wall, in bold white paint, we remember who we are. Not a protest, a reckoning. The government had tried to control a fire. Instead, they ignited a movement. And movements don't ask permission. They reveal truth. Britain wasn't demanding a leader anymore. It was demanding responsibility. And now, after a week of headlines, frantic palace briefings and political chaos, everything has come down to one brutal realisation. The royal family is done playing nice. Behind the velvet curtains of Buckingham Palace, sources say the mood has shifted from diplomatically irritated to strategically furious. Not loud, not emotional, calculated, measured, dangerous. Advisors have reportedly warned the Prime Minister that if he continues to blur the line between state affairs and the monarchy, the palace will seek constitutional clarification. In simpler terms, they will use the rulebook against him. King Charles, always careful, always composed, has remained silent in public, but insiders say that in private, he is furious that the monarchy is being dragged into political theatre. He allegedly told aides that the crown must not be used as a prop in a political campaign. And then we have Prince William. William's team might call it protocol reinforcement, but the world saw it for what it truly was: a warning shot. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't call anyone out by name. He simply drew a line and crossed no one needed to question what it meant. Observers are now saying this wasn't just a statement, it was a declaration of sovereignty. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Starmer is now in damage control mode, reportedly stunned by the backlash. Newspapers across the political spectrum began questioning whether he underestimated the public's loyalty to the Crown. Even MPs within his own party are whispering that antagonising the monarchy is political suicide. One senior strategist was quoted saying, "Starmer forgot something critical. You don't pick a fight with an institution that has survived wars, abdications, divorces and political collapse. The country is watching." People aren't tuning in because of policy. They're tuning in because this has become something bigger. The future king defending the monarchy's independence versus a prime minister testing how far political power can go. It's now more than headlines, more than leaks, more than outrage. This is a power struggle. One side is fueled by authority, the other by centuries of unshakable legacy. The palace has spoken, the government has been warned, and the world has just witnessed how quickly the royals can strike back when pushed too far. The message is crystal clear. You do not use the crown. You respect it. If you'd like to stay updated with every new twist in this political royal drama, don't miss the next upload. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you never miss breaking updates like this, because this story isn't over. The crown always protects its own.